Hello and welcome back. I hope that you're doing well. I thought it was time to do an updated my favorite art supplies, and we're going to start off with sketchbooks. I like to use multiple sketchbooks at a time, and I like to have different kinds on the go as well. But one that I always have on the go is an art creation sketchbook. This is my newest one, this green cover here. I just started it recently. I have finished two this year, and this is now the third that I've started this year. I will definitely not be finishing it before this year is out, but this is my newest one, and I've done a really in-depth review on this sketchbook, the Royal Talens Art Creation sketchbook, if you're interested in a more in-depth look into how it handles different mediums. But to give you an example of a few different sketches here and there, I've put in some on screen for you. I use this as my everyday sketchbook. It's where I go to study, take notes, journal, but also come up with ideas, thumbnail, pretty much any kind of practice that you'll come across, I do in this sketchbook. It's mainly for me for dry media, but I do occasionally dabble in a few light washes and also some gouache as well in this sketchbook. Next up, we have the Strathmore 500 series mixed media journal. It is the hardcover version, and as you can see, it has taken quite the beating over the year. It's one of the most easily scratched up sketchbooks I've come across, but the actual integrity of the sketchbook is still really, really good. There's nothing falling out, the pages are still fine and safe. It's just the very first layer of the sketchbook that's getting scuffed. But this is 100% cotton paper. It is pretty thick as well, so it takes wet media okay. It's a little bit better than using cellulose paper, but not as nice as using actual watercolor paper that has 100% cotton in it. And I think after using it for a while, that is just because of the sizing, I think. Not necessarily the weight of the paper, it's that the watercolor acts slightly different on this cotton paper compared to other cotton papers. But I still really, really love it, especially for pen and watercolor. For ballpoint pen and watercolor is really nice in this as well. I just go in with the expectation that watercolor is going to act differently on this paper compared to other cotton papers. Another type of sketchbook that I have been enjoying a lot this year is the Stillman and Birn soft covers, especially the Epsilon and the Nova. It's the first time that I've tried the Epsilon and the Nova this year, and I've been really enjoying them. I've tried other Stillman and Birn sketchbooks in the past, such as the Beta, the Delta, Zeta, and Alpha. And I've been really enjoying the Epsilon and the Nova. I have the Nova in grey, and both of them are soft cover. The soft covers do scuff a little bit, and it took quite a lot of me being very rough with the sketchbook and having it with me in my bag every single day for it to end up getting the crease on the cover that you saw. The paper in the Epsilon is smooth, and it's the thinner kinds like the Alpha and the Nova, not like the Beta. It takes most media pretty well, especially just for my sketching. I love using especially dry media and ink in here. It does resist pencil pocket brush pen, and watercolor isn't the best on this paper. For the thinner papers by Stillman and Birn, I do find Alpha to perform a lot better when it comes to watercolor. And for the Nova, I've been really enjoying using markers, ink, and colour pencil. The last sketchbook I want to show you is the Etcher 100% Cotton white cover sketchbook. You can get these in hot press and cold press, in a bunch of different sizes, and in portrait and landscape. This is the roughly A5 landscape cold press sketchbook. I also have the same in hot press, but I haven't opened that one yet. I'm most likely going to start that once I finish this one. I use this pretty much only for watercolour and ink illustrations, and I use it as a space between a sketchbook and using my loose leaf 300 GSM watercolour paper. It acts very, very similarly to the professional £140 300 GSM papers that I use, even though it's thinner. And it is by far the best performing cotton sketchbook that I have ever used. It is absolutely gorgeous to paint on, but it is also the most expensive sketchbook out of all of the ones that I've shown here. So I don't reach for it super often because it is quite intimidating to use, and I pretty much just use it for illustrations and when I want to practice watercolor and know that the results are going to be very similar to when I'm using my other watercolor papers. We may be done with the sketchbooks, but I'm not done showing you paper. I do also like using loose leaf paper and blocks, gummed pads of paper where I can remove the sheets and there's a little bit less pressure versus a sketchbook. Also, there's a lot wider variety of papers available. So here we have Hahnemühle Nostalgie gummed blocks or gummed pads, and I like using these for studies. So here we have a alcohol marker, a sorrow head, which I used 4 markers for, and you can see the bleed through that you get with alcohol markers here. It's not terrible, and it doesn't matter too much since it's loose leaf sheets that I do have bleed through. You can get this paper in a sketchbook, and I have used the sketchbook previously, but I do find these pads of 50 sheets to be a lot more economical, and I do like occasionally using loose leaf paper for tests, experiments, swatching, studies, and also just to do illustrations and drawings when I want the freedom of just using loose leaf sheets of paper. It's not the best though when it comes to watercolour, as you can see here. It's fine for light washes and it looks quite good with colour pencil on top, but it's not really designed for watercolour. And speaking of watercolour, here are some of the blocks that I like to use. So these have at least 2 edges glued down to hold the paper down while you're painting, and they're all 300 GSM, £140, 100% cotton paper, and I have cold press and hot press variants of both of these, but I've just picked up the cold press to show you, and they usually come with a very thick cardboard back so that you basically have a stretching frame but portable in block form. And I love using these when I don't want to worry about stretching the paper or if I'm out and about. It's very convenient. The Fluid 100 paper is their 100% cotton version of their paper, and I really enjoy it. I like both the hot press and the cold press. The cold press texture you can see here, and I'm going to compare it to the texture of the cold press in the Academy paper here from Bauhong. So this is a paper that I have been trying out this year and I've been really enjoying it so far. The Academy line is their student grade paper and it's still 100% cotton. The block is glued everywhere apart from this little strip that you see there, and it's glued all the way around, so it's a lot more difficult to get off the block, but you also know that your paper isn't going to budge. You can also see how much more texture the cold press Bauhong has compared to the cold press Fluid 100 paper. I do find that the Bauhong paper has a lot more texture to it in general, including its hot press paper. Its hot press is almost like some cold press papers I've used, but I don't mind too much. It's still perfectly good for what I use it for and for using with ink as well. For watercolours this year, I've mainly been using 2 of my palettes, including this one that I started this year. I have a full video on my channel where I go over choosing all of these pigments, why I chose these pigments, and also going into detail on the colour mixing and things like that as well. If you're interested in knowing the specific pigments and the paint names, all of that is in that video, but I will go over some of the main brands that I use. So I mainly use Sennelier, Daniel Smith, M. Graham, Mission Gold, and Shinhan. Most of my paints are from those brands. And For Daniel Smith especially, I like using them for earth tones, and for my primaries and some of my secondaries, I like to use Sennelier and M. Graham. And then the Mission Gold and Shinhan are kind of spattered in there as well. The other palette that I've been using a bunch this year is the Portable Painter Micro. You'll have seen this on my channel a bunch last year as well, I think. And it's just a classic for me. I still love using this palette, especially when I'm out and about. I haven't changed the colours inside, I've just been refilling them as needed. I found that these 6 work really, really well for me. I do have a video going over the paints that I have in this as well, and the colour mixes that I can get using them too. I know that the red-orange is a particularly weird choice for some people, at least from the reactions that I've had in the comments to that video, but I've found it a very, very useful warm red for me in this palette. I keep going back to this palette because it is so conveniently designed. The ease at which you can use it, the amount of mixing space you have, or how small it is, the fact that it is so small. It still has like a little water cup in it as well, the little thumb ring at the back, which is more like a finger ring. You kind of put it between your fingers, or at least I do. You can't really slot your thumb through it, but you can also clip that little flappy thing at the back of the palette to your paper, to your sketchbook as well. If you just use a clip, you can attach it to your sketchbook and then you're hands-free, which is very cool. For gouache, I use Winsor & Newton Designer's Gouache, mainly because it's one of the only brands I've tried, and it works really well for me. It's consistent, and the opacity has been good for them. I kind of get what I expect with it, but I am interested in trying some other brands as well in the future. I don't know why I took off the cap here, but I ended up getting white all over me as a result, so yay. I don't have any earth tones in gouache from Winsor & Newton, and the earth tones that I do have are from a brand that I don't particularly enjoy. So I'm going to be trying out holbein gouache next, I think, and picking up a couple earth tones, probably like a yellow ochre and then a medium brown. And then I get to try holbein because I've been hearing lots of good things about that brand. But if not, at least I know that Winsor & Newton are consistent for me. We're breaking out my pencil box now because we're going to be looking at my favorite color pencils. I like using 2 different kinds for 2 different reasons. So the first here we have is polychromos, which are oil-based pencils. They're on the harder end, so they hold their shape really well. They're good for fine detail, for line art. They're also really good for lots of delicate layering and also getting loads of layers down without wax bloom. And then the other kind of pencil that I like to use for the opposite reasons to this are Prismacolor Premier pencils, which are very soft, buttery soft. They have a lot more opacity in their laydown. They get colour very, very quickly onto the paper, and for that reason they're lovely to use for the final layers for me, or when I want to get colour down very, very quickly. So I use both of these for different reasons, and I like having both of them around. Next, we're going to be looking at graphite pencils. I absolutely love drawing in pencil, and I'll usually get addicted to using one particular kind for a while, and I'll use that over and over and over and over and over, and then I'll need a change. So I usually have a few different kinds around for different kinds of feedback of the graphite on the paper, different softnesses, hardnesses, so on and so forth. The first one that I've been really loving this year is the Blackwing Pearl. I've been using this for a few years now and I love this pencil. It is buttery smooth, so when I want a really smooth feedback for the graphite, I usually switch to this pencil. It also has a pretty wide range of values you can get from it. It can go very, very light very easily, and it can also go very, very dark very easily. It's between the, I believe it's called 602, the grey Blackwing, and the black matte Blackwing. It's between those two. and I can get a very nice dark line art, graphite line art using this, and it doesn't smudge unintentionally. It still smudges, but it doesn't smudge unintentionally as much as other soft grades of pencils to go as dark as this for line art. On the other end, when it comes to having a lot of feedback in the graphite, we have the General's Cedar Point in HB. It's kind of a medium HB in its darkness, and it has a lot of feedback when you use it. It's got, I mean it in a nice way, it's got a scratchy feel to the graphite, a nice kind of scratchy. Next we have the Mitsubishi 9850 in HB. This is a very smooth feeling pencil and I love it for sketching and then also note-taking, journaling, study notes, and everything in between pretty much. I use it as a very general purpose pencil. It's very affordable where I am, but still gorgeous to use. And I do find what it says on the pencil to be very true. It's very smooth writing and also smooth drawing experience. For mechanical pencils, the lead is definitely the most important thing for me, and I pretty much exclusively stick with this type of lead now after trying out a few different kinds. The feel of this lead is gorgeous. It's so smooth. I don't generally find that these break. I do have to be a little bit more careful about how I use the 4B just because 4B is so soft. You don't often come across a 4B in mechanical pencils, and this is a very dark 4B as well. And I am a little bit more careful with the 4B as a result. You do get different amounts of lead depending on the thickness. You get more in the 0.5 and 0.7 containers than you do in the 0.9 and 0.3. I like having different thicknesses around for my mood, but also for different levels of detail that I need. Same with the different softnesses and hardnesses as well, depending on what I need. I usually find my general sketching pencil changes again with my creative whims at the time. At the moment, this very moment in time as I'm recording, I am mainly sketching with the 0.9 HB. But a few months ago, I was only sketching in the 0.7 2B. And here we have the pencils that I actually use these leads in. So this is the P200 series of Pentel pencils, and you'll get a different number at the end to denote the thickness of the leads that go in them. So P207 is for the 0.7 millimeter. These are very lightweight, they're a thinner barrel, and they're also pretty affordable where I am. If you like a heavier, thicker pencil, then the Graph Gear 1000 is also really nice. I enjoy using this. I particularly enjoy the feedback that you have on the grip. It's got like a mixture of hard metal and then also squishy like silicone pockets as well. A new pencil to me this year is the Pentel Arens, and I have this for the 0.3 millimeter. It's supposed to protect the lead more than other mechanical pencils. I'm not sure how true that is in practice yet, but I do enjoy the feel of this pencil, and I haven't found that my pencil lead is breaking yet anyway, so one would assume that it's working well. You might have also noticed a theme with all my mechanical pencils. It's not intentional, apparently. Pentel just makes really good mechanical pencils for my needs. For the thicker kinds of mechanical pencils, you'll come across clutch pencils, and I picked this one up this summer, and it's the first time I've used one of these, and I've been loving it. I absolutely love the feel of this. It's very lightweight, but it's also got more of its weight at the front, so it's weighted more heavily towards the tip because more of the metal is there in the grip. Again, I love the feedback around the grip area, and the lead that comes with it is so, so, so nice as well. It's got these like little rubber grips at the back so it doesn't fall out accidentally, but it does mean that this particular kind of lead doesn't fit in other clutch pencils unless you remove that rubber. And the leads that I use are these ones. It's the Mitsubishi 2mm and it's in the 4B. I am kicking myself I didn't pick up the HB when I picked these up because they're very, very hard to find where I am. And I picked them up while visiting my fiance. So I'm going to probably have to pick up some HB the next time I'm there. Now I'm getting into my favorite pens and also just some miscellaneous sketching supplies and markers. So for my fountain pen here, I have a fountain pen that I just picked up. The brand is Dryden, but I don't really know the brand at all. It's got an ink converter inside it, so I can use my own inks. And for the ink in this particular pen, I have Diamine Onyx Black. I love this ink. It's like a gorgeous muted purpley black. It's not waterproof, it's water soluble, which means that I don't use it before I use watercolors, but I do sometimes use this with a water brush or a damp brush in order to intentionally move the ink around after I've put lines down on paper. A sketching classic for me now are ballpoint pens. I've been really getting into ballpoint pen sketching this year. These ones are Bic ballpoint pens, but really I don't think the brand massively matters. I do like that I can drop these off once they're finished at a local store and then they can be recycled though, so that's really nice. And I love using these for sketching and also with watercolors since they are waterproof. Another classic for me is the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen. I am still using the same one that I've been using for years now, and it's been holding up really, really well. You can buy cartridges for it, and the ink is waterproof, so it's very easy to use with watercolors. I do find though that the ink doesn't work well on different kinds of paper. You have to be very selective about what paper you use with it. Next up, we have the Kuretake Bimoji brush pen, and I have the fine tip end. You can get this in a bunch of different brush tip sizes and types. This one is a felt brush tip, unlike the Pentel Pocket brush pen, which uses real bristles. Another pen that has been new for me this year is the Zebra Sarasa Clip. I have the vintage set of colours, and this is just one of them. And I've been loving this for sketching in my sketchbook and then also for writing notes as well. It's a very smooth feeling, nice gel pen, and the colours are really, really lovely, and I enjoy them a lot. For white gel pens, I like using the Jelly Roll. I've not tried many other white gel pens though. This is just a classic, easily accessible one for me, and they usually last me a really long time. I don't need to replace them that often. When it comes to acrylic markers, I do really like using Posca, but I also have been really enjoying using One for All markers, especially this one here, the 1mm extra fine in Signal Black. I use this a bunch in my sketchbook to fill in large areas of black on ink drawings and also to add backgrounds to my sketches. And bonus points, you can buy refills for it. I've also been enjoying Tombow ABT markers. These are water-based markers. I don't have too many of these. They have a felt brush tip on one end and then a fine tip on the other end. I picked up this particular colour this summer along with a red, and then I have three other ones, two lilacs and like a lilac-y blue colour, and I like using them for sketching. Along similar lines, I also like using Ecoline markers. These are refillable. You can buy the bottles to refill them, and they have just one tip. They have a felt brush tip, and I really enjoy using them for under sketches in my sketchbook rather than colouring. For alcohol markers, I do still really enjoy using Touch Twin from Shinhan, but this year I managed to pick up a 72 set, missing one, of the Copic Set A from a charity shop, so a thrift store. I'd say very, very, very discounted price since it was a charity shop. And I'm super lucky that I managed to pick up, even though it's missing one, I still have 72 Copic Chows, and I've been loving using them in my sketchbook this year. When it comes to erasers, I love using kneaded erasers for sketching, also for lightening my sketches before doing ink over the top or watercolor over the top. And I am not particularly loyal to any brand of kneaded eraser. I have a few around, and you can mold them into different shapes. You can erase as much as you want or as little as you want, lift as little as you want. I also like using this Mono Zero small, like thin eraser for fine details, and I can pretty much get any effect I want using the both of those in my sketches. And there we have it. These are my favourite art supplies updated for 2023. It's interesting to me to see what has changed and what hasn't changed since last year. And let me know in the comments what your favourite supplies have been this year and if they've changed that much over the years as well. I'd love to know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!